The planet Relora 5 sparkled under the light of its 3 golden suns. Its forests were a deep, mesmerizing purple, its oceans shimmered like liquid silver, and its skies swirled with colors that would make any artist from Earth weep with pure joy. But of all the countless wonders on Relora 5, none were more cherished, more loved than the Otocpes. To human eyes, they might have looked like magnificent metallic peacocks. Their feathers were made of living, breathing crystal, and their wings shimmered with a captive, inner light. But to the alien cubs of Relora 5, the Otocpes were more than just beautiful creatures. They were family. Every single sunrise, the alien cubs, small, four-armed, and endlessly curious bundles of fur would race through the glowing fields to wake their Otocpes. Up, up, up! A young cub named Lumo would chirp, barely old enough to have seen his second bi-season. The Otocpes would blink their radiant eyes awake, unfold their crystalline wings, and begin to sing. Their song was a sound like wind chimes dancing among the stars, a melody that filled the air with peace and harmony. But this particular sunrise was different. A strange, unfamiliar object streaked across the morning sky, a fiery comet that slammed into a far-off valley. It was a metal cylinder, and it hissed and smoked, a scar against the pristine landscape. The cubs froze, staring in wide-eyed wonder and fear. The Otocpes immediately braced their wings, forming a protective shield around their young companions. "Is it a monster?" whispered a cub named Oza, her fluffy tail trembling with anxiety. Lumo, always the bravest, took a cautious step forward and sniffed the air. "No," he said, his voice a mixture of confusion and certainty. "It smells ... like a visitor." The pod cracked open with a weary sigh, and a battered figure tumbled out onto the soft alien grass. The figure was clad in a torn suit, a helmet obscuring its face, and an air tank on its back was flickering with a desperate red light. It was a human. Commander Arya Wren blinked, her vision swimming as she looked up at the circle of small, furry, four-armed creatures that had gathered around her. "Okay, definitely not hallucinating," she muttered to herself. "They single quotes read ... adorable." But her observation was cut short as her air tank beeped faster, a frantic warning of imminent failure. She collapsed into the grass, her lungs burning, gasping for air that wasn't there. Before true panic could spread through the group of cubs, the Otocpes sprang into action. They leaped forward, their wings sparking with a strange bioelectrical energy. Their crystalline feathers rearranged themselves, blooming like intricate, living circuits. One of the majestic creatures pressed its forehead gently against Arya's chest. A wave of warmth spread through her, and with it something more oxygen, and a feeling that felt remarkably like hope. Her lungs, which had been on fire just moments before, began to ease. The desperate gasping subsided. Arya jolted upright, her eyes wide with disbelief as she stared at the creature. "You single quotes read ... You're alive, Tech?" she managed to say, her voice hoarse. Lumo puffed out his small, furry chest with pride. "They are Otocpes," he chirped. "They heal and they help. And they chose us." Arya let out a weak, breathless laugh. "Well, I guess today they chose me too." She looked around at the concerned faces of the cubs and the gentle, powerful presence of the Otocpes. And for the first time since her crash, she felt a flicker of safety. Arya scanned her wrecked pod. The damage was catastrophic. It was completely beyond repair. A wave of despair washed over her. "I'm stuck here," she whispered. "Unless ... Her gaze fell upon the Otocpes' shimmering feathers. She saw not just beauty, but living circuitry, and organic technology far beyond anything humanity had ever conceived. The cubs saw where she was looking and gasped in unison, their small bodies tensing. "No hurting them!" Oza cried out, stepping protectively in front of her favorite Otocpes. Arya immediately raised her hands in a gesture of peace. "Never," she said, her voice firm but gentle. "I don't hurt. I fix with respect." And so, under the watchful eyes of the cubs and the humming, resonant presence of the Otocpes, Arya began to work. She set about trying to rewire her emergency beacon, but she wasn't alone in her task. She wasn't using the feathers, but she was learning from them. The Otocpes seemed to understand her intent. They taught her, projecting complex blueprints and schematics directly into her mind, like shared dreams or forgotten memories. It was a collaboration unlike any other in the history of the galaxy. Hours later, as the 3 suns began their descent, the beacon flared to life, shooting a brilliant pillar of white light straight up into the swirling, colorful sky. Rescue ships would be arriving soon. The thought brought a pang of sadness to young Lumo. He looked up at Arya, his large, dark eyes filled with sorrow. "Will the humans take you away? Forever?" he asked softly. Arya knelt down in the silver grass, the blades cool against her skin, and gently ruffled the fur on his head. "I'll have to go home, little one," she said. "But I promise I'll return. And I'll bring friends with me, kind ones." Oza's tail, which had been drooping, began to wag with excitement. "Humans want to be our friends?" she asked, her voice filled with a hopeful curiosity. Arya smiled, a genuine warm smile that reached her eyes. For generations, humanity had looked to the stars with a sense of fear, of paranoia, always wondering about the aliens that might be lurking in the darkness. But here, on this strange and beautiful world, these small, furry children and their crystal-winged companions had rushed to help a dying stranger without a moment's hesitation. If this is what aliens are like, Arya thought to herself, then humanity has a lot to learn. When Arya's rescue ship finally descended and she prepared to leave, the Otocpes launched themselves into the air. Their feathers glowed with an internal light, turning them into a flock of living galaxies against the twilight sky. On the ground, the cubs waved their forearms wildly, a chaotic and heartfelt farewell. Through the viewport of her ascending ship, Arya raised her hand in a salute, a silent promise whispered into the void. "Humanity will be worthy of you, little heroes. We'll be worthy." And somewhere, among the infinite tapestry of the stars, a new chapter for humanity began. It was not a story of humans versus aliens, but a story of humanity because of aliens. Because sometimes, the greatest, most profound teachers in the entire galaxy are not wise old sages or powerful empires, but simply a group of curious cubs and their magnificent, crystal-winged Otocpes. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tailies from across the galaxy. See you in the next one.